Hi, my name's Kieran McKenna. I'm assistant coach at Manchester United, and I'm here to answer some questions for Ask the Coach. I finished as a young professional at 22 at Tottenham Hotspur with a chronic injury. Fortunately, by that stage, I'd already started to transition into coaching at the later stages of my rehab. So I was lucky enough to go straight into working as an assistant with the youth team at Tottenham under Alex Inglethorpe and John McDermott, into a really fantastic and talented youth team group. So that was a great exposure for me, working with some high-level players and some high-level staff, travelling to European tournaments and gaining some really good experience and good exposure early on. From there, that was probably after that point, I had three years of really high-level and intense studying and developing myself. I spent 3 years at Loughborough University studying for a sports science degree, but at that time also coaching at university level football and also coaching in non-league football, working in the foundation phase at Nottingham Forest, also doing European trips abroad to study different methods in academies in Europe, and also gaining some experiences coaching in North America with the Vancouver Whitecaps. So that was a really intense but really enjoyable period, probably doing in and around 8 sessions a week and games on top of that as well. Not earning a lot of money, but picking up some fantastic experiences. So that was a good period. From there, I was able to go back into Tottenham, originally as assistant under 18 coach, but also involved with setting up an analysis department in the academy. So that was another area to learn from and a really good experience. Was made the under 18 lead coach at 26. So again, a big responsibility and a big step at a young age, but really enjoyed that. Had 3 years with the under 18s at Tottenham, and then obviously got the opportunity to move to Manchester United to fulfill a similar role. That was a dream move, really, a massive opportunity, and again, a big responsibility. A really good period, couple of years working with some good young groups at Manchester United, and then thankfully got the opportunity to step up with the first team over the last couple of years, originally with Jose and now with Ollie. So it's been a really intense journey, 11 years so far, and it's felt pretty much non-stop, but I've really enjoyed it. I think I'm developing myself along the way, and hopefully I've still got a lot of developing to do, and only at the early stages of my journey still. And advice to give to a young coach who would like to make it at the highest level, I think it's really, if you have that ambition and that goal to be a professional coach, then to have the belief in yourself that you can do it. You need to know that it takes a lot of sacrifices, a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment. You need to spend a massive amount of hours on the grass, picking up experiences and developing yourself. Just gain as much exposure as you can to different environments and to different coaches. But if it's your goal to do it, then believe in it. It's a fantastic profession, and just really dedicate yourself to it and develop yourself firstly as much as you can, and from there opportunities will arise. I don't think I could say that I've had one role model right across my career. I think more a case of learning and picking up from different people along the way. I think I was very fortunate at the start of my career to come under the influence of Alex Inglethorpe and John McDermott in the Spurs Academy. Alex at that stage was, a young coach, but a fantastic coach, working at a really high level of technical and tactical detail, really organised, really purposeful sessions that were tailored for the individual. So So that was a great insight. And John McDermott was the academy manager, and again, a really strong leader. Very good at developing people and managing staff, and demanded high standards of the people around him, and really strong on the principles of youth development. So I think I got off to a really lucky and a really insightful start working under people like that. But after that point, really, it's been, I think, more a case of learning from people as I go along, and watching a lot of different coaches and picking things up as I go along. I think a big part for me has been, studying and watching other managers across Europe. I think I've always been a big student of the game from when I started out. I think anyone who's around me would attest that I'm always watching games from all over the world and studying teams. So I think that personally has been a big part for me. Has been watching some of the top managers over the last decade in England, but especially in Europe as well, and studying their teams and trying to understand their principles and the key tactical bits from their team. And I think if you can do that, and you can study a manager or study a team over time and really try and understand their principles, then I think, behind that you can sort of deduce some of the training principles and practices as well. So I think little things like that, just watching, studying a lot, reading a lot as well, trying to pick things up from different coaches and then incorporate that into your own work, and just get out on the grass and, trying to find out what works best for me, and trying to become your own man as well. I don't think that's, really hampered me on my journey in a big way. I haven't felt that throughout my career, really. I think, there's a lot of top coaches now who've made their way in the game without having had a very big professional career. So I think I'm fortunate, our generation, that some people have came before us and sort of, developed that pathway for coaches from different areas. So I don't think it's been a big boundary or a big barrier for me to get over. I think there's some different, details and probable things in your journey. If you haven't had that career, I think it's more common to start maybe at a lower rung, or lower down in the football pyramid, or working with, younger players. But on the other side, I think that's a big benefit, to gain them early experiences, if you haven't had that big reputation. So, for me personally, I went from working with the under-18s at Tottenham, where I had a reputation and was known, but then went to working in the foundation phase at Nottingham Forest. But, I didn't see that at any stage as a negative. I seen that as a big positive, and really enjoyed it and learned a lot from that time. So I think that's one difference, maybe, that you'll possibly start a bit lower in the pyramid, but I think it's about taking the positives from that, certainly. On top of that, I think, maybe I was fortunate in that I played at a high enough level that I feel that I can see some of the pictures on the pitch that players will see, and I can empathise with them and feel what they might feel in certain situations. So, that's one benefit from playing the game for as long as what you can, and that's something I probably would say to younger coaches, is that even alongside coaching, try and play for as long as you can. Try and pick up them experiences, because, even when you're coaching, I think if as much playing experience as you have at any level, I think will sometimes help you see the pictures and emphasise with the players as well. Beyond that, I think it's about filling in your knowledge gaps, really. I think if you haven't got experience of something as a coach, whether that's, playing in big competitions or playing in front of big crowds, or maybe even if it's, you haven't played in a certain position, you haven't played as a centre back, but you are coaching centre backs on some details. I think it's just about filling in your knowledge gaps. I think speak to people who have those experiences. Speak to people who've done things you haven't done. I'm fortunate enough that I work alongside Michael Carrick in my current role, and obviously he's been a fantastic player and is a fantastic man, and has a huge wealth of experiences that I don't have. So I can draw on that from him and ask him questions and ask him about what it was like to go through certain situations, and then I can draw on that knowledge as well. So I think if you haven't got experiences of playing at a higher level, it's about trying to educate yourself as much as possible around those areas and trying to fill in those gaps. On top of that, really, I think, to be honest, and this is maybe my experience in working with senior players at the moment, is that they're a little bit interested in your playing career and what you did, but they're a lot more interested in their own one. So I think as long as you can show empathy with them and show that you can understand their situation and you can help them develop in their careers, I don't think it's a big barrier for the players and not a big barrier for yourself if you haven't necessarily been through it yourself. So yeah, I think it's not been a big barrier for me. I think anyone who wants to follow that pathway, it's about don't let your background be the barrier. Educate and develop yourself as much as you possibly can, and there's no reason why you can't go on to coach at a high level. There's a lot more similarities than there are differences, to be honest. Obviously, if you're talking about much younger players, then there's big differences in the technical and physical and maybe the mental capabilities that coaches will need to factor in. But if you're talking about sort of high level academy players, under 18 players at a Manchester United or a Tottenham, then I don't think the differences are so big. I think you still plan your sessions in accordance to the level of the players and what elements you want to work on. You still try and adapt for individuals. You still try and develop a good relationship with the players, and you still want to make it enjoyable as well at whatever level it's at. So I think there are more similarities than differences. In terms of the differences, I think an obvious one is that the importance of winning at first team football is a lot more prevalent. We're always of the belief that in youth team football the individual development comes first, and a first team football, obviously there's a massive importance to get results. So that can change the content of your work and certainly changes the context of your work. So that is one difference. I think on top of that, maybe working with younger players, you're at times working with a little bit more of a blank canvas in terms of some of their experiences and prejudices. So that's one of the joys of working with young players. You're filling their vase as such, and you're working on concepts that maybe they haven't learned before. Whereas with senior players, at times, they have a more developed perspective on the game, and they've worked under different managers and with different philosophies. So you need to be skillful in terms of understanding their pathways and their prior learning and where they're at with certain things, and find a more cooperative way at times to work on different concepts. So I think there's little differences like that, but for me the main principles of coaching are the same, whether that's with senior players or young players, and it's probably more some of the principles of development that are more prevalent in working with youth players than with senior players. I think there's a lot of important areas, really. I think it's important to respect and develop the individual differences within the player, both in their qualities as a player and as a person. I'm not sure there's one magic ingredient, that carries across the board. I think it's more important to make them the best version of themselves. But I think when it comes to the players who are at the very cusp of making the first team, I think it's more normal that they all have highly developed technical skills and physical qualities and game understanding. I think the margins tend to be very, very slim at that level. So at that stage, I think the small mental differences are probably the biggest thing that can make the difference between the player being able to make that jump and establish themselves at that first team level. So that's probably the most important area to look at, in my opinion. I've been fortunate enough to work with a couple of young players who are really driven, really motivated, fantastic professionals, and have that desire to learn every day, and that's been the key element that's been able to enable them to make that jump. But for another player, it might be a different mental quality. It might be someone who's got a fantastic competitiveness and a burning desire to win, and that's the key factor for them. And again, I've seen other players where, they're maybe a little bit more laid back, but have a good way of dealing with pressure of stepping up to the next level, who don't seem to get fazed by playing with senior players or playing in front of crowds or playing with, in what other people would see in pressured environments. And that's been maybe the key element that's enabled them to step up. So I think it's really important to identify and recognise and develop the mental characteristics at that top end of the scale, and to promote and I say to develop those within players. I think on the other side of that, it's very often a mental characteristic or a mental or a mentality issue that can often hinder a player when they get to that level. So the earlier that you can identify those areas, to speak with the players on those areas and to come up with a plan of how you can develop those things that could be a barrier further down the line. If you can get that work in and help a player in that area, then often that will be the thing that can help them make that last push. So I think it's so important to be a good psychologist as a coach to know how to affect the mentality of players, and often that's the thing that can get them over that last hurdle and also help them to sustain a career with good longevity. I think firstly that's the importance of the work of the youth department, to prepare the young players as well as possible, to put them in a wide range of environments and to give them a lot of experiences and challenges that can prepare them for these moments as well as possible. I think that's also really important how the academy worked with the first team staff to make sure that the work is coordinated across the club, so that when they are stepping up, it's not going to be into anything that's vastly different or unique to stuff that they have experienced before. So it's really important that within the club you have similar threads going on to the work and similar ideas, especially between the first team and the older age groups within the academy. I think that's something that we're fortunate with at the moment at United, where there is a good joined up thinking, good relationships between the first team and the academy, and hopefully that's making the transition a little bit easier for the young players. I think on top of that, the first team players are really important, as well as the staff. I think very often the young players stepping up to the first team, gaining that peer approval from the senior players is one of the most important elements from them. So, ideally, if you have some first team players who've already progressed from your academy, that's a fantastic asset, because they can speak with the young players from a position of empathy and having gone through that experience. And then again, ideally, you want to have maybe some other senior players on top of that who can set the standard and help the young players, but also be strong with them and challenge them and be demanding of them as well, because that's important at the right time. So I think as staff, it's partly our job to encourage that leadership from the senior players to make sure that they feel that that's an important part of their role, and that's something that they can do, and to have that backing from the first team staff, that they as players can also have a big part in mentoring and developing the young players. On top of that, then, as a first team coach, the best example I have is probably Chris Eaton. When I was a young player at Tottenham, Chris was fantastic with young players coming up just on really simple things. He would always come and meet you before the session and speak to you on a personal level and let you know that they'd been watching your games and that why you were training with the first team, what you'd been doing well, and what they were looking to see from you on any given day, and what the content of the work would be. So, that was a really good example for me, and something that I try and continue on myself, just to have that personal relationship, that personal touch with the young players, to make them feel comfortable and encourage them just to express themselves and be confident in their ability, and show the things that they've been shown for the youth sides whenever they get the opportunity to come up with the first team. Jose is a absolutely top manager in a lot of different ways. A very intelligent man, a fantastic communicator across different languages, and it'd be impossible not to pick things up from someone like him. So I think probably one of the biggest insights that I gained was just seeing the levels of organisation, around both his training process and his match preparation. Within the training process, just the way that the level of periodization within the training blocks, the process behind his design of training practices, the small details within the session, and the transition between practices, and the flow of work, and the delegation and clarity of duties from different staff within and around the session were all organised to a really high level, and a higher level than I had experienced before. And again, around the match preparation, just seeing how he went from that process of studying the opposition and identifying things from within them, to then turning that into training practices, and also then the analysis side of it, and how that was broken down to filter that information to the players and what they would need to know. So I think just a really high level of organisation around those processes, and obviously he's worked at the highest level for such a long time. He's developed his processes in that way over a long period of time, and certainly a lot of things that I've picked up and use now, and will certainly look to use in the future as well. Ollie is a really enjoyable manager to work with. I think that's, whether that's as a staff or as a player, mostly because he has fantastic human qualities. He trusts his staff and he trusts his players. He enables them to be able to express themselves and develop well within their roles. I think he's someone who has a really strong, connection and affinity for the club and the ethos of the club. But is also modern in his thinking, and wants to bring in new ideas and move the club forward. So at the moment, that's just a really enjoyable thing to be a part of. In terms of partnerships in coaching, I think it's important, because people bring their own strengths and their own experiences to the table, and the more that people are allowed to do that, then the higher the cumulative quality can be. So I think Ollie values and has been appreciative of the things and the qualities that I can bring. But on top of that, we have a wide range of experiences and qualities across both our coaching staff and the support staff. And I think Ollie obviously brings his own individual qualities, but on top of that, he's really good at managing that blend, and adding to that blend, and utilising people in the best way possible, and hopefully that's all being done for the benefit of the club, and will bring some success. I think you need a wide range of qualities as a first team coach, because I think the context can change so much depending on the manager and obviously the composition of the other staff as well, what your role within that might be. But I think the main qualities I would say is within those parameters. I think firstly the primary one would be a loyalty and a commitment to the manager. Obviously you're there to assist and to help him implement his philosophy and his way of playing on the team. But ultimately the manager is the one who makes the decisions and is the leader of the club. So it's important that you support him and are committed to him in the best way possible. You can offer suggestions and ideas and obviously give your input, but when a decision is made, it's vitally important that the coaching staff especially have a united front and present the same face to the players and to the outside world. So I think that loyalty and commitment is probably the overriding importance. Beyond that, I think the second one would probably be the ability to build relationships and trust with the staff, with the players. You spend so much time together over the course of a year, and you see the pressure that they're under to go out and perform, and it's so important that they have that network of trust from people around them and the coaching staff that they trust their characters and that they believe in. Sometimes as the coaching staff, you need to be the buffer between the players and the manager maybe, so they might come and speak to you about something before they would go and speak to the manager. So it's important to have that trust and that rapport, because I think if you don't have that, then it's going to be very difficult to make any impact with any sort of coaching from a technical point of view anyway. And thirdly, I'd say probably is a high level of technical knowledge. It's important that the players trust and believe in what the coaches are saying, and if you're given information related to an opposition or to a part of the game plan, there needs to be a high level of belief in the information. You need to be ready that if the players are unsure of anything, if they have a question, then you always have to have a well thought out and well reasoned answer. You don't always have to agree, but you have to have a strong idea and principles behind what you're saying, and the players need to know that you're knowledgeable and can help them with their game. So I think there's a lot of qualities across the board, but those would be the three biggest ones for me. I think that's a really good question, and it's a really important area, especially for the young players. I think it can be a dangerous space when somebody has been promoted from the development squads to the first team because of how well they've done, but they're in a stage maybe where they're not playing a lot of games or a lot of minutes in the first team, so they're missing out on games and experiences with their own age group. And very often in season with the first team group, the general group training can't be too intense because, especially at the clubs involved with European football, you tend to be playing 2 games a week. So a lot of the work is recovery and preparing for games. So it can be a dangerous space for young players if it's not managed right, and it's something that we're very, very aware of, and we try and combat as best we can. I think the young players at our club at the moment are very fortunate in that they're with an entire coaching staff really, and a manager who are really interested in their development and looking at the long term as well as the obvious short term targets. So I'd say that probably 80% of the sessions probably finish up with players breaking up into small groups and going to work with coaches in smaller groups to work on individual aspects of their games. It's not just for the young players. There's some of the senior players are fantastic trainers as well and like to stay out and work on their games. But primarily, yes, for the younger players, that's vitally important. I think on top of that, it's not just the individual training. It's also having that individual focus around the young players, that to make sure that they're drawing from all the experiences that they're getting. So to make sure that within the main body of the session, they're still developing the individual parts of their game and working on things that they need to, but also making sure that they're learning from the experiences of being around the senior players, that they're drawing from the right role models, that they're picking up the lessons, that they're living their lives in the right way possible off the pitch. So I think it's just vitally important that that we wrap that support network around the young players, that individual focus, to make sure that they're getting the training that they need, but they're also getting that loop of, you know, experiences, but also challenges and feedback and you know, all that individual input from the coaching staff that they need to make sure that they're getting as much from the experience as they can.